conflict.
The appointed hour having arrived, the meeting will be called to order. The agenda begins with reports from members, starting with Virginia, who met with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce Wastewater Subcommittee last week.
Right. The Chamber has an 11-member subcommittee on wastewater, and it includes the Chamber of Commerce itself, former town manager from Yarmouth, APCC director Ed DeWitt, former Senator Rob O'Leary, and lots of people with lots of experience and interest in the Cape as a whole. They wanted to know what Falmouth was doing. And
one of those nights.
yes, so and I think since we're doing so much, if a town is just sewering, then it's a little easier to follow. So I was there for 2.5 hours, and we had an extensive conversation. I told them that we had 8 initiatives, and I would just say for the public, they are the aquaculture project in Little Pond and Green Pond, sewering Little Pond lower watershed, monitoring wastewater in 15 sites with eco-toilets, investigating the technology of at least 2 sites for permeable reactive barriers, looking at widening of Bourne's Pond Inlet, developing a fertilizer bylaw for the Fall Town Meeting, developing a draft Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan for Oyster Pond Watershed, and developing a stormwater control plan. Those are our major initiatives on the table at this time. It's a very full workload. And then we have a lot of sort of maintenance things that we're doing, like the baseline monitoring issue, working on the financing and funding, both present and future, responding to the CWMP that's already been filed with the state. We have a series of comments that we'll have to address, and so on. So they got a grasp of the fact that Falmouth is very focused on nutrient management issues, that it is a balanced picture. It's not one size fits all, and it's not one alternative is the whole answer. It's a combination of factors. I think at the end of the meeting, my presence was definitely appreciated. I showed them maps, and as I said, we talked for more than 2 hours. So I think it was well worth the time to do it and to network.
Comments or questions? Matt?
Did they mention anything about the APCC conference that's coming up? The 27th, I think.
That's correct, the summit.
Summit.
Yes, Ed DeWitt did not mention that at this meeting. I don't know whether it was being organized at that point, and he was just about to leave on a short vacation. So we did talk about the fertilizer bylaw, and he said that was something that APCC would definitely support and was interested in what we were developing. I have seen emails since then about this summit. And it is basically, as I understand it, trying to create a coalition of nonprofit organizations and develop a set of principles that everyone presumably could get behind, that has to do with focusing on nutrient management as a Cape-wide issue.
My point being that there's nobody really, none of these organizations are, unless Basis is, going to represent our position.
They also invited the 300 Committee, the Sierra Club. I know those for fact.
Again, I just don't think they have the, they know what we're doing, unless.
I would like to add David Dowell, who is the chair of a small committee with the UUFF, which is a 501c3 organization.
Right.
The Green Sanctuary Committee, which I'm a member of.
Mm-hmm.
He said that I may come as an alternate to that. I have also, I sent in the RSVP, I took their little test.
Oh, good.
I asked them, am I eligible? So I will be going to it.
Okay.
That's good.
But I wanted to ask the group this evening whether other members of the group would be going and what would be the useful thing for me to try to represent them. Should I represent the group or should I just represent myself, or how should that be?
I'm not sure that the Nevis is in a position to really answer it. I read, let's call it the instructions, and it sounded like you would need to represent the group that you were,
Which I can do.
which you certainly can do, but you carry with you all of the broader knowledge of what's going on in Falmouth.
I will be there in any case, to listen.
That's wonderful.
If nothing else.
And I think you have identified the groups that were invited, which did not include this committee or.
It did not appear to include governments.
Right.
It was nonprofits, and perhaps I would say it's groups that are environmentally oriented,
Yeah.
and it clearly said nonprofit.
In any event.
Well,
Yes.
I just think it's important that our position is represented because they're gonna come up with some platform on which to base all of their advocacy efforts upon. And, you know, it'd be a shame if it was just
Right.
sewer.
I'll also be attending
Okay.
in
Oh, good.
the Coonamessett Farm Foundation,
Okay.
since I'm the president of the Coonamessett Farm Foundation. Plus, we'll have an entourage that comes to also join the session.
Okay, so
All right,
some
so-
of our folks will be here.
Good.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
good. Any further comment on the Chamber of Commerce meeting? Review of the Echo Toilet event, September 13th. When is that?
Well, I'll say a couple of words and Matt can say his. We had about 40, something like 40 people were there. I gave an initial presentation with a lot of questions. I was interested in the fact that there were a lot of questions of all sorts came up. And 14 people signed up to hear more about it. Some of those people were already signed up, some of the people already known, but among that 14 there were some new ones. I've heard since then that SIA is going through that list of 14 and qualifying them. Then Hilda and Earl gave their 1-hour presentation. There were again a lot of questions. I was interested with the fact that there were lots of questions from the public about it. I heard both about my particular presentation. I heard both very positive and some very negative comments about it. So I don't know whether it went over well or not. But in any case,
You always throw the extremes out there.
yeah, well, sure.
Negative one.
Yeah, well, one was very interesting. I mean, one person made a very impassioned statement that I was too technical and too focused on negatives and too focused on telling people all the things I knew. And I recognize myself in that. I recognize myself as someone who does constantly try to represent the whole complexity of a situation, and sometimes I say too much. So I recognize myself in that. I can accept that. Anyway, I thought it was a successful thing. Matt, what did you think?
I thought it was a great win. I thought you were great. And I think we answered a lot of questions.
Yeah.
It was very open.
I would second that motion. You did just fine. I don't know who this person was, but you did just fine. It's a very complicated subject. You can't make it simple.
Did your spouse go?
What?
Did your spouse go?
No, she didn't.
Okay.
She's like mine. She avoids all of these things.
She was going to go, and she tried to find a way to go because I was going
eliminating people that would
early.
describe you. You said
Oh,
this person described you quite well. I was trying to eliminate people that would describe you quite well.
Oh, like it was
I think
his
most
wife.
people, most people who've listened to me for a while can describe me quite well.
All right. Any further comments on this one? Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that there were 14 people who signed up that were interested. I think that we want as many people who have at least some curiosity about it to sign up, because if they at least get to the evaluation stage and find out what the issues are, we learn something from that.
That's
We
right.
all gain something from that. And so anybody that has even, let's call it a remote interest in having eco-toilets should definitely sign up and go through the process. That will help the town gauge what kinds of issues we would be running into
Precisely.
if it were done on a larger basis, and we need to know that. It's a reality check.
Precisely, yes.
So for the studio audience,
Yeah.
we probably want to let people know that we're taking applications. We are by no means full, even though 14 people signed up. We need dozens of people for this program to work. So we're just at the beginning. Come, sign up, and The only other question is there, would we want to provide a phone number for people to call?
Sure.
I did provide mine, no one has called
Right,
me.
for our studio audience.
Yes.
When would you like to give folks your phone number and they can call you if they're remotely or very interested?
Yes, I'm Lynn Monroe. You can contact me at 508-548-4695. And if I don't answer, leave a message,
Great.
and I'll get back to you.
Yes, Dave.
I just want to say, I think that Wynn and Matt did a fantastic job, and I think that Wynn was very honest, which I appreciate. And just to reemphasize what Virginia just said, I think you guys in that subcommittee should keep records of all these people that apply and what they say about why they do or do not want to proceed.
SIA is doing that, exactly that.
Yeah, I'm hoping for everybody that we contact and go through the process of getting a price quote, that their response is gonna be recorded formally, either by email or by an interview question that I have. I'm gonna keep records of every single respondent and what happens.
Do you have a microphone?
No.
You should.
Yeah, after making that commercial.
Okay.
Right, that nobody now heard.
Anybody else on this one?
I just, it's slightly off the subject, but it's also eco-title business, and it's regarding the article that we submitted. Would that be out of order to talk about briefly? Not the substance, just the process.
All right, why not?
I talked to Frank Duffy today just to find out what he does now. And apparently, he used to examine every draft article and make recommendations for changes. But he stopped doing that because he did that and at some previous town meeting, and he got reamed out by the author of the article for changing it. But I said to him, I'm really interested in finding out if this is doable, if the article
In order.
that I...
The article is in order.
In order.
Right.
So he agreed to sit down and look at the Enabling Act and look at the Provincetown Home Rule petition
Right.
and see if this
Good.
will jive. So with the committee's permission, at some point I may bring that back, or ask to have that back on the agenda.
Duly noted.
This is the citizens petition article to exempt the 62 people that sign up for the eco toilets from having to pay betterments if the sewer goes through their neighborhood.
Correct.
Also on this topic, but slightly off the topic. I've mentioned before, and I just want to mention again, that eco toilets is one on-site solution, but we also have the potential to use some of the more modern denitrifying septic system add-ons.
Yes.
And so again, that's why keeping a list of people who are interested in doing something about their nitrogen, the fact that they took the initiative to contact us. So if it doesn't work out for the eco toilets, I still think at some point we need to focus on denitrifying septic systems as another piece of what we should be evaluating.
Ryan?
Yes, on the event, going back to the event for a moment, I was also there and I thought it was terrific, and it was great to see the public come. I think an important element, though, too, is that I think that Falmouth Community Television recorded it. And so therefore, those of you in our audience who may have missed that event may have a chance by checking the scheduling at FCTV, and you can then see what was presented and the discussion and the questions, and I think it would be a very good educational moment. So we do have that record. At least FCTV does, and I presume they'll be broadcasting periodically.
Right. Okay, anything more on the eco toilet event?
May I respond to what Virginia just said? Virginia, I very much would like to put on our agenda at some future time, really,
Yep.
not very long from now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to bring George in.
Yes, George.
I'd like to bring a couple of other people in, and go over what we know now about the others, how they, what we might possibly be able to find out about them in the next year or so. I think there's some information that's available and some that's missing that we need to talk about.
Right, I think that's an excellent idea. There are three in particular that he's had more recent experience, and they clearly have much higher percentage removal than the old traditional. It was only half, 50% removal. So yes, an update would be really good.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, that's a very good thought, because that has always been on our wish list of things to proceed with.
And it's part of the
Well, and
eco-climate project.
it's part of the motion, it's part of what town meeting agreed to.
Right.
And I've started actually putting together a matrix of the technologies. The Barnstable County website has data collection and display where you can look at the different systems that are installed and look at the data points on how the systems have been performing, and I've been sort of in between the website and other urgent matters trying to put that together. So I do have a plan to put together sort of a technical description of to sort of quantify some of the success that's been happening through the Barnstable County Health Department. So,
Great.
in process.
Okay, next item, the review of the State Environmental Regulatory Agency meeting that was held last week. Jerry was there, but he's not going to be here tonight to give us the benefit of his observations, but Steve was also there.
I did.
You bet.
Thank you. I became aware of this meeting because John Waterbury was notified of it, and he brought up to my attention at the Board of Health meeting on Monday night. I believe it was held on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon in Boston. And hard to determine how the invite list was prepared, but nevertheless, it was primarily state agencies. It was chaired by the head of the DEP and sort of co-chaired by the woman that heads up the MEPA agency. And a big portion of their focus seemed to be driven by some of the work the coalition did around inlet widening. It was a little bit of a roundtable discussion. They had the folks from the Division of Marine Fisheries, the DEP, they had the folks from the Ecological Restoration Program, the historical portion of the state's things, and everybody sort of identified themselves. And then the discussion really went around on that the MEPA folks are kind of entering some territory they've not been in before. They're used to getting comprehensive wastewater management plans that maybe are more, over time or in the past, more specifically targeted, and now they're getting these broader type of plans, and they are wanting to make sure that people are aware of what's happening, helping to be better define rules, letting people know what to submit or not to submit. There was a little bit of an extended discussion at one point about how some of the communities on the Cape have chosen to approach certain projects as ecological improvement projects because the state knows how to handle projects labeled that way, as opposed to labeling the projects that they're submitting as inlet widening or pond dredging or dredging, because that throws in the MEPA folks into an area that they don't quite know how to handle it. So people were acknowledging that disconnect going on and realizing they need to get better understanding of the things that are coming forward, whether it be permeable reactive barriers, the shellfish issue, and they initially set up, I believe, a subcommittee to look more at the inlet widening issue, to try to help to say, if you're going to submit one of these are the sort of things we would need to see to have MEPA. MEPA was very clear that they're a rules-driven agency. They don't have a lot of leeway. Stuff comes in, they have to do certain things. There are certain triggers, if you have X square feet of this, it will do that. If you say it's this, they must do that. If you say it's this, it fits into another category. So they
No room for thinking?
Well, I'm not going to defend the MEPA agency, but they are set up to screen projects and determine if they require further review by other agencies or whatnot. And so that's their job, okay? And it was a very vigorous discussion, and I thought it was, at the end, I would say it was reasonably productive. Likely more to follow.
Would you call it sort of a mutual education meeting? Regulators and agencies that comment on projects, sort of trying to get everybody on the same page?
Yes.
Okay.
Was,
I made one sort of point, and the point I made was that, you know, the town of Falmouth is engaged in these demonstration projects, and that as we've approached this thing having to do with aquaculture, we're pretty clear that a lot of people are doing aquaculture. But we've been wrestling with, if we do this, how do we measure it? And if what we measure will be acceptable to somebody in the state, and whom that might be, for us to know that we've been successful, and that when the DEP is telling us to do something about nitrogen, and when we go do something, some other state agency is going to step in and say, but you didn't do this or you didn't measure that. We are kind of on our own right now. I said, we're working on the presumption that if SMAS tells us this is what you should do for monitoring, that will be acceptable to the state. And it would be nice if the state could come back and say, yes, that is what you should be doing, and not have us spend some money, do some work, and at the end of it, produce some documents, and have somebody in the state say, no, you should have measured this. Because I said, I don't think we can go back to the citizens of Falmouth and say we spent their money on a project that the state's now decided something else should have been measured or done.
Fair
So
enough.
that they need to tell us now
Yeah.
what they want
You're right.
for it to be acceptable.
Right.
was Brian Dudley there? from
Ryan
DEP?
Dudley was there.
Good.
Okay.
Any further comment on that meeting? Good to have somebody there. I'm glad you could go. And, okay, next piece, status of the EPA ELF. Environmental Protection Agency was sued by Environmental Environmental Law Foundation.
CLF.
CLF.
That's-
Can't read.
Yeah.
Conservation.
There's a typo there.
Right, and co-sued by the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, as you know, some time ago, about the question of point source pollution versus non-point source pollution, and the case for a long time was in discussion between the parties. A couple of months ago, the discussions ended and the case became a case again in controversy. The EPA filed an answer, which they had not done for the previous 2 years. The answer being, we disagree with everything you say, and you're wrong, which is what the answer is supposed to be. So that's where it stands now, as far as those parties are concerned. The idea of intervening in this case, which we've talked about, and which a number of towns have talked about, Bourne Water District and Sandwich Water District have hired Gregor McGregor, and he has filed a motion to intervene on their behalf, which has not been heard yet. The town of Falmouth is considering being intervener. The selectmen had it on an executive session meeting of theirs a couple of weeks ago, and obviously no decision has been made, but it's a current inquiry on the town's part as to whether they should and what the implications would be. So that's still on the agenda for the town. EPA, interestingly enough, did not object to the intervener's proposal to intervene. CLF and the coalition did, saying basically this is none of their business. So we'll see how these things play out, but that's the current status of that. In fact, the Conservation Law Foundation has already modified its original complaint based on what it read in the EPA's answer. So apparently, everybody's sharpening their pencils at this point and starting to look at the nitty-gritty of the case, and so it's becoming more like a case and less like a conversation between two parties that may not both wish us well.
Publicity stuff.
Right, big difference. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I don't think I have any more answers.
I learned last night that the EPA had written something to Congress about this, and it changed something. I wanted to know what that was about. Do you know?
They had received a letter, the head of the EPA in Washington had received a letter from the two senators and two Congress. These are all Republicans, but two of them were chairmen of the respective environmental committees in their body.
Florida, senator from Florida, senator from Oklahoma, and two of the Midwestern representatives.
And it was a fairly hard-hitting set of questions to the head of the EPA, basically saying, is this really your position that everybody's septic tank in the backyard is
A point source.
a point source? I mean, it was really very hard hitting. EPA took a while to answer, and they did answer, and they said, well, no, but, and then they had sort of a more technical response than I just gave you, but it wasn't a total no.
Yeah, I think what the legislators were implying in their letter, if I remember correctly, was that the EPA uses these suits to advance their regulatory agenda.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was the essence of their letter, sort of accusing them of doing this, and the EPA
Yes.
obviously is fighting it.
Sure. Steve?
Last night at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, Andrew Gottlieb showed up with
Aaron
Aaron
Jackson.
Aaron Jackson to make a presentation on where they're looking at this sort of regionalized plan. Mr. Gottlieb spoke last, and he went on extensively about his knowledge of the suit and his belief in what some of the backgrounds of the suit are. And he put forth the hypothesis that the suit is ultimately not so much about Cape Cod as it is about the fact that the EPA over the years has shied away from regulating agricultural runoff as not being a point source of pollution, and that this case in fact represents a way to establish that the EPA owns responsibility for any pollution that goes onto the ground that gets to a waterway, and that the reason the interveners from the Florida and Oklahoma and two Midwestern states came in the way they did is because there are some strong interests that have been in place since the Clean Water Act went into place not to regulate non-point source runoff, although the law never specifically says it's not in your purview. People have sort of kept away from it as the third rail of the EPA's Clean Water Act. So he was someplace between it's not about us and sort of cynical in that the suit might in fact be have much bigger goals and aims. Because we keep sitting here sort of saying, we're doing stuff around this. We're putting comprehensive wastewater management plans in. We're working our way towards this. Why are you bringing the suit to make us do things? I don't know that he's entirely right, but it was an interesting hypothesis on his part to put forth.
And there was one other little piece to it. The Conservation Law Foundation could have this larger objective that has to do with agricultural runoff, but what has sort of dragged the Cape in is the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, which suddenly turned up as a companion to the suit. And that they had their own agenda.
Yeah, he actually started off by saying it really was driven by issues up at Lake Champlain initially, and the phosphates.
Where CLF has a suit.
Yeah.
And that this was more on that basis, and that you're right. The Buzzards Bay Coalitions
came on
joined the
board
suit
for their own reasons.
and brought the focus on the Cape as well.
Yeah.
Well, there may be some merit to the idea that those particular congressmen and senators are interested in the agricultural problem and not Cape Cod's problem.
That's right.
But
they were,
the lawsuit itself quite clearly designates Cape Cod as the issue and spells it out on every single page, that we are the target and not the farms in Maryland.
Right, but I'm not a lawyer, so I can't explain how this all works, but I have watched the EPA's regulatory purview shift and change at various times. People say what is or is not their responsibility to take care of. So it's not as far-fetched as, say, perhaps that there were explosives laden into the Twin Towers, okay, in terms of like alternative theories as to why things are happening.
EPA's current theory, as expressed in their response to the suit, is that it's without merit. So we'll hope they
We'll wait and see.
Any further comments on this one? Okay, report from technical consultant on the water bill insert and the website development. See ya.
Okay, we're gonna do the quick one first, which is I gave you a form factor of what the water bill insert is going to look like. I did not fully and finally format it because I didn't want to take the time. I just wanted everybody to see the size of it, the language of it, and to get final comments. We've heard from town manager, we've heard from the DPW. They made their requests that are incorporated. on this, so I wanted to give us all one last chance to change some text. We've already begun to speak about, it says on the Change Your Toilet, Change the World, it now says participants will receive a $5,000 grant, and it's really up to $5,000, so the change in language would be participants will receive a grant for up to $5,000 for installing eco toilets in all bathrooms. So that would change
Right.
in a minor way. And if there are, I would say if there are other comments, you can give them to me now, or you can email them to me, you know, Monday, because we really don't need to get this to them until the end of, I mean, we've got 10 days.
Right.
So by Monday would be nice, and then I'll do a final format and make sure that when they cut into thirds, everything's square and even and good margins on the top and bottom, and work with the vendor who's actually gonna be doing the printing and make sure we do a mock-up of one and cut it out and make sure it looks fine.
Win.
I have some problems with the second part of the first sentence, homes and businesses, that shows how well eco toilets work. I don't think that's a precise description of what the program is trying to do. I don't have any specific words to offer at this point, but
Okay.
I have a little bit of trouble with that particular phraseology.
Any other comments, Ron?
On the other side, concerning the fertilizer use, although it's coming up on the agenda, there is the draft bylaw that is, I'm not sure exactly how to put that in this. When will this be sent? Will it be sent after town
October.
meeting?
No, it'll be before town meeting.
Okay, so, because it could be that after town meeting, there may be a regulatory, legal factor to think about with regard to this. I'm not sure if, I'm just, as I think about it, I just don't know. This looks like, it's sort of voluntary, which I think is a good thing, and should be, but it doesn't, could be a big change coming.
Well, if you have your way, it'll be voluntary after the town meeting too. But
He might join us.
We have
this
to talk
goes
about
to the
that.
printer before town meeting, so I don't think we can do much.
No, it goes out before, I see, it goes to the printer before town meeting anyway, yeah.
And this doesn't in any way contradict the bylaw, because the bylaw recommends a reduction of fertilizer. We all know that many of us don't fertilize our lawns at all, and they do just fine.
Right.
But the bylaw doesn't order you to do that. So I see this as useful information, and it certainly brings it onto the radar screen of the citizens. And I think it's done a really good job.
Sure.
Thank you for all, with all due respect, Virginia.
Sure.
If you look at section 4, performance standards,
Okay.
it says the application of nitrogen, this is the draft bylaw, you all have the new one, the new version.
That's actually the very next agenda.
Next agenda, I'm just saying, in context of this, though, it does say you're prohibited from using fertilizer from October 16th. April 14th is just one example.
Okay.
So that is not voluntary, exactly, if this passes. So it's just a thing.
Fair enough. Good point.
And we, obviously, if this turns out to be a successful way to reach the public, we'll be doing it again. So,
Yeah.
We can remind them it's the law next time.
Yeah. It's not just a good
No,
idea.
I'm just saying it, you just want
Yeah.
Also,
See it.
it's referring people to the website, so
Yeah.
at the appropriate time, the website could have information about the bylaw.
That's
What
right.
a perfect segue
Yeah.
into our next discussion.
All right, any further discussions or comments on this? I guess we can send them to see if,
Deadline is Monday for any additional text
Deadline is
changes.
Monday. And I will send out a,
Noontime Monday, right?
Noontime.
noontime Monday.
I would only say that small print is not such a great thought. A lot of people can't read small print, and there's some small print here. But that would be my comment.
Well, the cartoon will make them get their glasses out.
They will have to get their glasses out.
magnifying glass.
So,
yeah.
anyway, Okay, further comments or whatever on that insert?
Send it to me by Monday.
Okay.
So I
Website-
guess procedurally, I'm gonna get comments back. Send out one more iteration.
You got comments from the town manager, selectmen? Okay, and they've been incorporated into this?
Yes.
Okay.
And water department,
And
great.
And the water department? Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay,
So, I will then send out changes
Fine.
and hopefully, I'm just, we're not meeting on the 27th, so I need to have this by the 30th, so we're just gonna do the last little bits.
Right.
so I'll move approval of the flyer with final editing to be completed by Monday, and a final sent out to the members.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Got it.
Who's seconding?
Wyndham Road.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Website development.
website development. Here we go. We can get into this really as much as we want, but, should we turn the lights off?
Sure.
I
think they're
right behind the.
Okay, all right, well, at least I didn't get it on this, all right. Yeah, sorry. Forgot I was hooked up.
We can tell.
At least it was put on the machine.
Yeah, well, that's what things can be.
I think you have to go into the restroom.
Right.
I think that's receivable.
Here we go.
Okay, we may be taking a 2-minute recess, I think, while,
I'm going to use that.
Take a coffee break?
All right, now, so about those lights.
Yeah.
Or that's a huge roll of toilet paper.
I know, whatever it is, that's good.
That's good.
that was
You
our
know what,
coffee
the
break.
kids are a lot bigger now than when we were kids.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right, Falmouth actually has a website that was designed by Nate Weeks. So GHD hired Regina Villa Associates, who's the site or web designer, and this is pretty much what we got. That's what it looks like. You can see the buttons on the side. There's a lot of text, and that CWMP and the little orange box repeat themselves, and in the middle, different things are written. And it's very, sort of what I call suit and tie, formal engineering speak, and not very fun or engaging, but it's a form that we can work with. And I have spoken with George Trudeau, who's the IT coordinator expert at the town, and we have gotten all of this on a disk, and he's downloaded it. And we have it now in a structure that's HTML files, meta files. And I've been researching sort of front ends, like Microsoft had front page years ago, and that's what this was actually done, and this was done in front page. The problem with front page is it's obsolete, it's not being updated, and it probably doesn't work with Windows. It probably works with Windows Vista, but it doesn't probably work with Windows even 3. So we don't really want to use sort of the graphical user interface, sort of a front end for editing in the future. It's not going to be compatible. So there's some freeware out there, HTML editors that are easier to work with. I'm going to look at them. I have used Dreamweaver before, which is an Adobe product, but it's expensive. So I'm going to try to look for freeware that will allow us to edit this in the future. But we've got the structure set up. It's going to live on the Town of Falmouth website, and it's going to, and I didn't put this part on the PowerPoint, but the idea would be there is right now 3 different links on the department website in the Town of Falmouth that gets you to different wastewater pieces. Under the Board of Selectmen, there's the old wastewater committee, old water quality management.
The review committee.
The review committee. Farther down, there is our committee and the subcommittees, and then there's the water department and Jerry. And there's a bunch of overlapping information. And I had a conversation with Jerry, who agreed that if we could create one website that each of the front pages would go to, there wouldn't be information. So what would happen is you'd go to the departments. As a resident of the town, you'd go to departments, you would go to the wastewater department. On that front page, it would be Jerry's contact information, Amy's contact information, and then a link to this. And it would all be on the town's website. But this is gonna change. And so the rest of the presentation is my first cut at things that we'd wanna change. And let me just kind of go through it and we can discuss how we wanna really have you guys dig into it because there's a lot here. The first thing I would do is I would change what it says here for these buttons. The buttons say presently what's new, Falmouth Vision, Planning and Projects, South Coast Comprehensive Management Plan, Mass Estuaries Project, Nutrient Management Working Group, Nitrogen and Nutrients, Contact Us, Links, and Home. But those are obsolete links. Those titles don't make sense. What I would propose we do is change to who we are, what we are doing, and under what we are doing, we would talk about comprehensive planning, engineering and inlet widening, eco-toilets, shellfish, PRBs, stormwater, fertilizer reduction, and meeting information. So who we are, what we are doing. The next link would be called the nitrogen problem, where we would do a little bit of background. Then we'd have a next section down here that is called background information. And in that background information, we would have a list of all the completed projects, all the past reports, and the Mass Estuaries, the MEP studies. Right. So it would be organized with what we're doing now and have current information there, and then have a nice archive of the historical data, which is very useful, but you couldn't find it even if you wanted to because it's all over the place. So I thought a nice little section called background information. And then contact us, links, and home. So I've gone through, and then the circle is just demonstrating that what we need to do when we change these buttons. The titles of them is the bottom has to change on every page. And so I kind of went in. The other thing I would change, so I mean, I'm going to change this. On the top, can you guys see that? Yeah. It's called Wastewater and Nutrient Management Project and Planning. I've just changed it to the Wastewater Department and the Water Quality Management Committee. And I talked to Jerry about this, and he was actually very enthusiastic about the idea that the Water Quality Management Committee is working together with the Wastewater Department, working together to clean up our estuaries. And so this site would actually be a collaborative that shows the things that have happened in the past through wastewater department and the things that are happening with the Water Quality Management Committee, and not having them be completely separate. And that's a thought which could certainly, this could just be the Water Quality Management Committee. I just, in an effort to look at the kind of information that's going on here and where it's coming from, there seem to be links, there seem to be overlap, there seems to be collaboration, and it seems to be a good thing. I'm not sure I need to read you all the text that I changed.
No.
Good.
You're on the right track.
The idea is to change it to be inviting to read, to make it easy to read, to make it sound bites, and what I thought is we'd go through this tonight. I was almost going to send this out beforehand, and I said, no, go through it. So I'm going to send it to everybody, and then you can read what I wrote. How do you edit a website, with a committee? So we thought this was fun.
That's right, a third of a page.
And this is still the home page. So the home page is going to change the language here. The buttons are going to be different. The language is going to change. And then I think we need a map on that first page that has a link to all the documents about a particular watershed or a particular estuary. I mean, if you want, we're just going to go back. This is what the website that we have to start out with. And what I'm proposing is we go here, and on that front page we have a graphical, kind of a cartoony map, not even a Google map, because that's just too formal. An informal map that you can scroll over Little Pond, click on it, and find out all the stuff that's happening about Little Pond. So,
You'll get that map if you want it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can get this was
No, I'm just trying to carry through. If you go to Little Pond, you're
Yep.
gonna find out things about Little Pond.
Yep, you get a
One of
map.
the things you're gonna find is something like that.
Yes.
Okay,
The report,
whatever. The TMDL report.
whatever, all the current stuff that's happening. So if Little Pond is your neighborhood, from the homepage, you can say, I want to know about Little Pond.
Good.
Right? So, and we're calling it Meet Our Estuaries, so people can meet their estuaries.
You're calling it what?
Meet Our Estuaries.
Oh.
Okay, this is the first, when you click on the who, why am I pointing at my computer? You guys can't tell. Who we are, right? Who we are would get you to this page. It would list the members of the committee. It would talk about Article 17, and then it would have a little sidebar, if you will. So in the middle, where I crossed everything out, is where the new information is going to go. And then the sidebar would have what Article 17 funded and how much, as a thought for who we are. So right on the home page of, right on that first page, you get some general information about the people, Article 17, and the money. So we go on. This is the first page of comprehensive planning. So who we are, I just showed you, what we are doing. The way this would work is if you ever gone to a website and scrolled onto a button and then a bunch of drop-downs happen, that's what I'm envisioning for this, is a little drop-down, and comprehensive planning would be one, and eco-toilets would be one of the drop-downs. And this is what the sort of look of each of those pages for the drop-downs would be. You'd have comprehensive planning projects, you'd have the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan broken down into sections, you'd have the Oyster Pond Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, and then you'd have baseline monitoring. And then we'd have a little sidebar that says get involved, and I'm hoping I'd get a little feedback on all of this, but some ways for people to get involved. Next would be inlet widening. So this is engineering and inlet widening. We have information that people could, if you clicked on it, engineering and inlet widening, you'd see the preliminary layout. These are the 3 tasks from the engineering RFP. And the idea would be you could click on those and get the information that's being generated about those 3 topics. And then if you wanted to see the whole RFP, you could. And then we would try to synthesize some fast facts from the engineering and inlet widening. I am going to just quickly show you eco-toilets, same idea. You got a page, information, and links to documents. That's sort of the structure that I'm presenting as a possibility. Shellfish, same idea. You click on this, you get here, and then there would be specific documents that you get to. And we may want to have a sidebar that, gives people a fast fact about there too, but I didn't necessarily think so. PRB, these are all of the specific tasks in the RFP, but the idea was you could click on a task and find out more. You get to the denser document. And stormwater management and fertilizer reduction. Fertilizer reduction is a little different because you don't really have RFPs with tasks that people can then get the results from. The idea is this page would have some very simple bullet point pieces of advice on how to fertilize less. So it's easy to have a lush green lawn and stop using nitrogen fertilizer at the same time. Here's how. Boom, boom, boom. And then if you're doing it using nitrogen, do it responsibly. A couple of things you can do to be more responsible. There's tutorials on other websites on organic lawn care. Craig Nelson has a nice tutorial. Green Cape has some reasonable information. We could link to the UMass Cooperative Extension turf management best practices, but that would be my suggestion for the fertilizer page. We'd have then meeting information, and here is where we'd have the next meeting, past agendas and past minutes. Because it's good to have that background information.
You should put, if you're going to do this, at this page you should make a button that would send you back to the official page where agendas get posted. Because we don't put the agendas up on any of our historical stuff because they have to be posted a certain place in the town.
Okay.
Okay?
Link.
So if somebody who scrolled through and got there, they should be able to get back to where the current agenda is.
All right, link.
Current agenda button should send you to the spot that they would actually sit.
All right.
Sorry.
Easy. And then this would be a rewrite of the nitrogen problem. There was a web page that said nitrogen and nutrients, and it kind of goes on. And so my thought would be to rewrite it to be a little more accessible to your average reader. Have more pictures. This is fish kills from last summer. You know, just get some real pictures in it. And there was a link to the science behind the TMDLs, which would be the MEP reports. We'd then have a page that has completed projects. And I did something interesting here, which you guys can read at your leisure, but it's a little sidebar that tries to be anecdotal, it tries to be emotional, it's not so technical. You know, these days the talk in Falmouth is all about how things used to be. Folks say they used to go down to the pond and gather shellfish and have a nice supper. And it just kind of goes on to try to, you know, I'm looking for ways to make it a website that isn't just a bunch of technical jargon, but has an emotional that gets people thinking about the heart of all of this, which is why we live in Falmouth. And then we can list all of the completed projects in one place, in maybe chronological order or something crazy like that. And this would also be a place where the nutrient management working group could be recognized as having accomplished good work in the past and the first committee. So we'd have a section that says completed projects. We have past reports, all available for what's important. And then I was hoping we could pull out some water quality planning in the 80s and 90s and the good things that were done so that people would know. There must be something. Past reports, do a little reorganizing, and I think it's nice if you're going to have a past reports to maybe try to pick some fast facts. I mean, you folks have been doing this obviously longer than I, so there are maybe 2 or 3 things that we'd want to pull out and have as kind of a sidebar so that it's in people's...
You can always quote Eric's mother.
I was going to say, yes. Eric's mother's history of,
Eric's mother's history of the sewers.
It's in the Book of Falmouth.
yeah.
It starts in 1932 and ends in 1986 and describes how little progress was made in those days.
It starts in 1650.
Very
And
little
then there's
progress.
Eric's version that starts with the Ice Age.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fast facts. That would be the long view. Looking for something a little more current. But, you know, we can work on that. And then this would be a description of the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan under past reports. And then it gets really easy. So that was the stuff that I made a lot of changes on. The Mass Estuaries project is what it is. And it might be nice to have a sidebar that doesn't just lay it out there, but it says some things that people might actually get excited about. And then contact us, links, and I think we need to add some links. Faces, Buzzards Bay Coalition, although after what you were saying, I'd have to find,
Certainly faces.
yeah, certainly faces, and
Buzzards Bay Coalition's
Yeah, they're our friends.
They're
they
good.
have a
They're
very nice
participating.
website.
They're participating.
They have a terrific, they've got a lot of good information on their
Sure.
website.
Hook right in, they're our friends.
And there was another group, the Cape Cod Chamber, maybe the wastewater subcommittee.
Yeah, if
An
their
APCC.
contact person, we'd have to decide. It's
But the
probably,
idea is, put some more, this was very lean in terms of the actual relevant stakeholders in this whole thing, and who's got great websites that have useful information. We'd add a couple of those, and that's it.
Great. Probably a good idea to email that around to everybody, now that they've got a chance to see
Yeah, just wanted
the
to-
big picture.
with your changes,
Right.
right? I mean, there's no sense sending us the stuff that's being struck out, or you.
Well,
just send it like that.
I'm gonna,
Oh,
this is a
you're gonna send-
PowerPoint presentation,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm gonna send you the PowerPoint
I see.
presentation,
Okay.
and just so you realize what's going on,
Right.
let me just get to the second slide. This is what the old one looked like. So what I did is I did a screenshot. So the screenshot is in the background,
Okay. I see.
and the changes are over it.
Right.
And
Okay.
the reason this is useful is because I can actually turn this into HTML pretty quickly,
Perfect.
relatively quickly.
Steve?
It's an impressive amount of work in a very short period of time, and I like it. I just have 4 comments. at some point, maybe after the PowerPoint, sending the PowerPoint around, you can set up a trial hidden site that only we know the address of. So we can actually
Oh,
try it and
sure.
see how it works
Yes.
before it goes public, right? And as far as the links, if everybody approves, you can negotiate cross-linking deals. No money changes hands, but we'll link to you, Coalition for Buzzards Bay, if you'll link to us. If people think that makes sense.
I like that.
Yeah.
And at some point, you may want to explain what I think a lot of people who are just come in quickly from the flyer, these last two comments have to do with that. One is that the Water Quality Committee is a very unfortunate name, especially if it's coming from the water bill, even though we say that here. We don't have anything to do with the quality of the drinking water. And we really aren't trying, some people will be thinking, well, I don't care what the quality of the wastewater is. Look. But it's the quality of the water in the estuaries. I mean, we all know that. That's a small point. But my main point is that even though this is encyclopedia, and because it's encyclopedic, you want to make sure that the route in from these directions leads immediately in a really simple way to, for instance, something like either eco-toilets or fertilizer and other. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but at least on the eco-toilets, don't make them find it in all of this. I think, I'm just throwing this out as a suggestion to see what other people think too, but you're bringing them in with this. Don't dump them in an encyclopedia, send them right, the only reason they're there is because they're either interested in fertilizer or eco-toilets. So make that easy for them to keep going to one of those two things, at least for now.
I understand your point. It's a question of how many hops are going to have to be made to find information that is relevant to this.
So if you're on the homepage and we don't make it a drop-down, we just have who we are, what we are doing, and we list all those on the homepage,
That might do it.
That might do it.
then people can just see right on the homepage.
Page that it will say
eco-toilets,
yeah.
fertilizer, and it's what we are doing, boom, it's right there.
Or for now, you put those two in bold or something, or put them at the top of the list.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right. Doesn't matter the order. Right, you put okay, duly, I'm gonna think about it.
Ron?
I think these are good comments and sort of come to what I was thinking as well as you were presenting it. And I think Steve's sort of encyclopedic. It's very academic presentation, and I think we have to remember, or else identify who the audience is, the real audience, basically. And is it our citizenry here in Falmouth, mainly? Mainly. If that's the case, then I think we need to almost create a link to an explanation that's very lay-oriented, okay? And that whole thing, that might be all the information they need, and then they can very easily find their way to the more dense information and also supporting reports. So it's almost like once you're in there, you've got a choice of going to technical things, or you go into this other thing that would have to be drafted with drawings and whatever pictures, and make it very, very friendly to if that, to that's a major part of our audience. Other towns and other or other wastewater departments may be interested in going through the dense kind of thing, but we need to be sure. I mean, we've got some of these sidebar things, but to get there, you have to deal with a lot of information. So I think if there's a way to create over time, I wouldn't say you put this up the way it is, but then eventually we have a link that takes it to, as I've got an idiot's guide to Buddhism, for example. So it's sort of like, that type of thing that's actually quite sophisticated, but it would be that kind of approach.
You're absolutely right. It's got to be real simple
There's a guide for
at the
everything.
entry point, and the links can be where the complicated stuff is.
Right, but that's kind of who we are and what we're doing. That's fairly accessible language. That's not blah, blah, blah. I mean, who we are, what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then the nitrogen problem. Somebody wants to go, that's not on the home page. Maybe, I think the best thing is probably for you guys to look at what I wrote.
Yeah.
And see if it meets that accessible criteria. And then we just need to sit down and start editing text and adding text.
Keeping in mind that we have to have a finished version in place when this mailing goes
Yeah.
out.
Exactly.
So it doesn't have to be the final,
Right,
we change the finished
right.
version, but it's gotta be finished enough for people to be able to use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna take me, a week
Yeah, what's the date on the
to
mailing?
upload. To get it formatted online and all that.
Right, I think the mailing is late October. There's not a rigid schedule, but and it might even be the 1st of November, but certainly no later than that. I had one other comment, and it sort of goes to helping the public understand. Try as we may, there are quite a few abbreviations that keep coming into our conversation, permeable reactive barriers, PRBs, whatever. But I think there's one section that's got to have common abbreviations with the definitions, with things spelled out.
Yep.
That will be.
One other point here that I am as computer literate as almost nobody, but HTTP:// nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, do we need that?
Nobody does that.
Do they just go www?
Most people start.
Yeah, you have to put the www on
That's right.
But you sure don't need the HTTP.
Okay.
Just one other thing too, to think as this is developed, this is again, just having seen what you've done, is that we have to put the people in the picture so that they know what it means to them. Besides, we're going to clean up the water. Okay, that's nice. All right, and that's particularly for those neighborhoods. But I think that what it means to them means cost, that there's going to be something there, there's going to be factors there ultimately, and that needs to be, we won't know what cost is for a while, but the thing is that this is just something to say, okay, all this is great, we're going to improve the environment, the ecology, everything's going to be improved, which is wonderful, but there is a responsibility, I would say, basically, that the public will be involved in terms of this. So I think that ultimately, that's kind of like, I think what Wynn maybe was commenting about the eco-toilet discussions, that we need to put, here's a little co-reality too. I mean, there's the nice, view that we see, the vision, and then there's also the, how that would come about. So I think that's, I don't see that right now coming up, but it's just in that picture where we go off to the area where it's really, point by point.
Right, so what I have here is a structure and a framework.
Hey,
Which one?
you.
Even if you can do things instantly, you're not the limiting factor. The limiting factor is this committee poring over it and taking a reasonable time to get back to you, and then the other people saying, I don't like that change that he made, I want it this way, and so on. And so that's why I think you need to focus first on the part that handles the two issues here, to make sure you get that done and approved on time.
And other pieces.
And then the other pieces at whatever speed is reasonable. But you don't want to get bogged down in discussions of the encyclopedic part at the risk of not getting this done in time.
But we need to create a structure.
Yeah.
There can be a simple structure.
You have
and
a
you
structure,
build
but
on
not have it populated.
Yes.
Fair enough. Steve.
I think this is fabulous. And to your point about not having to have at meetings a sort of 7-person editorial board, I'd like to make a very strong suggestion that if you're going to pass this out as a PowerPoint, that we all take it upon ourselves and make a commitment to each other that we will open this up and read it, mark it up, do whatever you want, scan it and send it back to her before the next meeting. Sooner the better. So that she can kind of gather our key thoughts and ideas. So that when we come back to the next meeting, we're working against something substantive or further along. And not reading it for the first time and picking apart the individual words. Because I'd like this board to perhaps move more to what I would call guidance or policy and not, you know, be at every single word. I have a lot of faith and trust that I mean, just look at how you decide to organize this and everything. Obviously, we can pick this up at various times and say it's time to reorganize it or add more information, I would think. This is far better than anything we have right now, and I say let's get something up there. To your point, Steve, yeah, we've got to make sure that the link that anybody might come to from this works, if nothing else works.
I don't know whether, it may have,
No, go ahead.
I don't know whether it would simplify the process so that you could get the major thing done in time and so that we could get it actually working. But you were planning to rearrange or change all of the buttons that currently exist on the town's website. Would it be best, for example, when you're going in those buttons where you go to where you can find detailed information, just say in there for now, if you want to see these things, you go to where do you go to do it? Don't try to change them now unless it's easy to do.
Redirected buttons is pretty simple.
Just
Yeah, the buttons are actually simple because
Because you'll go to a place and say, oh, this button says, here's how I get the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, or whatever. You press the button, and you don't know that you're not drilling down to the next level on that screen. You wind up on this screen.
Or just be sure that just be sure that.
That was his point. Set it up and make sure it works first.
Yeah.
I will, for pages that we don't get to by the time this thing has to be, you know, rolled out for the general public, it's gonna say this page is under construction.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
Absolutely.
That's all it's gonna do.
And that's okay.
But I'm gonna
and that's fine.
People know that.
But I wanted to, at some level, you have to have the big picture,
Yeah.
because you don't want to just throw something up there and then realize, it's just easier to make 10 buttons as opposed to making 3 and then 3 more and then 3 more.
Steve?
So what I just heard you say, maybe I'll rephrase what I'm going to suggest that the committee should do is, we shouldn't try to wordsmith this document right now, but we should look at the structure of what you've got, decide if we are missing sort of key topics or key pull downs. If you look at what she suggested for pull down, and you think, gee, why isn't there a pull down at this point for this? That's the markup to pass back to her. Not, shouldn't we call this eco toilets and on-lot systems? Okay, there's something that says eco toilets and that can cover it. That's good, okay? If somebody feels there should be a separate button for on-lot systems, suggest a separate button for on-lot systems. And that way we're dealing in the structure right now and the organization of it in the general framework, okay? And not the individual words.
And for the things that I didn't populate, like fast facts or get involved, please make suggestions. I mean, I'd love to pull on the wisdom of the years that you guys have been looking at this stuff to try and come up with a few wonderful tidbits to be exciting and interesting and draw people in. Or I'll do it myself.
Further comments or questions? I think there's sort of a consensus around here that where to go with this. Thank you very much. As usual, a brilliant job.
Thanks.
Next item, discussion of fertilizer bylaw status. It went to the selectmen on the 7th. The selectmen acted on
They
Monday
put
night.
the warrant
You were
together.
there Monday night.
Yes,
So
it's on the warrant.
It's on the warrant. Sia and I went to the chamber board this afternoon and made a very brief presentation of what was in it. Anything else going on with that?
I thought that I think it was Sia's email saying that the enforcement authority,
Oh, yes, good point.
okay,
Yes.
tell us how that developed.
Sure. Frank Duffy commented, and there were Heather and Frank Heather had commented on the meeting at the Board of Selectmen, and Frank had followed up on it, that they felt that the zoning enforcement officer might not be the right place for this. And they asked me to meet with Elijah Moore to talk to him about this whole issue of enforcement and how they go about doing what they do in zoning and how he handled the landscape bylaw, and the coastal pond overlay district. And we had a very productive conversation. He was very supportive of talking and felt that typically zoning enforcement officer has the building code and specific tangible things that are either in violation or not in violation. He can measure a deck to see if it's in a side yard. He can look at a footprint. He can look at insulation. And so he was really not able, he doesn't know anything about nitrogen, he doesn't do fertilizer, it's not within the building code. And so he said he thought that his understanding of natural resources was not adequate to appropriately enforce, because the way all enforcement happens is a complaint is made.
Right.
And then he asks the person who's made the complaint to write it. So a written complaint that he then sends the person to whom I guess the accused, if you will, a letter stating it has been brought to our attention that you might be in violation of this chapter and verse of the zoning laws. Please respond. And so the person is then needing to respond, I do or do not have a shed, or whatever it is. And so this doesn't quite fit that process, because there's not a zoning thing that he can point to. Although he could point to the performance standards, it's very hard to decide if you've...
There's no smoking gun.
Right.
Just some very green grass.
And he felt that as a natural resources, as a natural resources protection regulation, perhaps the Department of Natural Resources would be an appropriate place. And so I talked to Chuck Martinson, who is the acting director of the Department of Natural Resources, who was not opposed at all to being the enforcement arm. He was
Wonderful.
interested very much in having, he thought it made sense.
And he has a gun.
And he has a
Well, that's not. He's very good at helping people understand situations.
and he is, and shellfish is there, and so,
Excuse me, remember the time the natural resource officer encountered Ermine Lovell?
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, he was in front of the selectmen with a complaint from Ermine that he had touched his gun in a threatening manner. Now, nobody threatens Ermine without a gun. But he got in a lot of trouble with it.
Probably felt threatened.
That's enough of that.
Sorry.
so in between working on the website, we had several conversations with Heather and Julian and the zoning enforcement, Eladio Gore and Chuck and Frank.
Good.
And the idea is that this is a good fit.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds like it.
That would be an amendment to this at some point in the process, and
Well, what's on the warrant now? Sorry, interrupt.
what's on the warrant is the piece that came out of this committee
The
last.
old language, or
I see.
the original
On the
language,
6th.
which says
So an
director.
amendment would have to be done on the floor of town meeting.
Not necessarily.
A recommendation that had different language in it would have to be made on the floor of town meeting.
I see,
Correct.
okay.
Right, and so what Frank wanted us to do this evening is discuss that particular substantive point and another sort of point of wording for clarification. And if this committee agreed, voted on it, I would send it off to him in the morning, and then he would take it the next step to make sure that
What's the wording in
the
classification?
the other wording is under golf courses, section 2, it's underlined. Under exemptions, it says golf courses, what we said before is golf courses except performance standard 4D.
Okay, this is all been handed out, so everyone has a copy?
Yeah.
There's nothing under section 2 about golf courses.
Section 5,
Five.
number
Five.
2.
Right, okay.
Sorry, section
Yeah.
5, number
Section
2.
5, number 2, yeah.
The wording was, in the old version, golf courses, comma, these are ones that are exempt, except performance standard 4D.
Yes.
Remember, and 4D has to do with being 100 feet
Yeah,
away
that makes
from a resource area.
Yes.
So the wording now proposed by town council is,
However, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D.
so it's a
Just a
clearer
little-
statement.
A clearer statement,
Fine.
that was the only thing, point of clarity, just a clearer way to say the golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D.
Okay.
And the Department of Natural Resources and I would just, those are the two.
Yeah, that's in section 7. That's the change there. So we get 2 changes being proposed. I want to put them in the form of a motion.
I move that we accept the revisions as presented.
Second.
Further discussion?
Wouldn't you want to also not have golf courses exempt from 4A?
The question is whether or not state law has preempted any regulation by us of golf courses. Is that the issue?
Nope.
Oh, well, all right then. What's wrong with what Steve says?
I think what we heard last time is that the golf courses are very efficient about how they apply their fertilizer, and I can't imagine why they would apply it at a time when it's not gonna do any good.
And
Yeah, I would stay away from that. I would leave it the way it is.
Steve has a good point, though. Someone at town meeting is going to pop up and say, how come golf courses are exempt from these states when everyone else is?
But I guess the other people are saying politically, you don't want to get the golf courses against the whole law.
No,
So I totally defer to you political experts on which way you proceed with that.
so, I mean, I think this is a good point. I mean, we do also have 4C, that, you know, so they could apply it during heavy rain if they want to do it, but they could.
And then there's 4B.
Let me say
I'm just trying to figure out, why we're pointing to one thing, it raises questions about the other.
See it.
Two things. The 4D is wetlands regulations, and we are reiterating what is already true under Conservation Commission regulations. That's 4D. And so we didn't want to have a bylaw, and the only reason we put except for 4D is because then we would be sending a mixed message on wetlands regulations, whatever resource area, wetlands anyway. For A, B, and C, we made a policy decision early on in going through the fertilizer bylaw that we weren't going to regulate golf courses because they have particular standards for their turf, and it's used in a very unique lawn. It is not your croquet course in your backyard. It's a commercial endeavor that has very specific, client expectations and a number of other things on the one side, and on the other is they are all doing very particular things to maximize the effectiveness of their turf management. The plan is, as part of voluntary measures, to actually talk to all the golf courses. There aren't that many, but it's just a matter of getting to them, and July and August was not the month to do it. So we're coming into the time before town meeting to actually talk to them. And that's why the policy decision when we first did this was not to exempt golf courses.
All right. The motion before us is only to deal with standard 4D and the Department of Natural Resources replacing the building commissioner. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I do. I have a point. I just have a point on, again, coming back to this. I mean, the motion to change those things is fine, but whether we want to broaden it. And we do have the application of nitrogen for the establishment of new vegetation in the first growing season or repairing of turf in the first growing season after substantial damage. This is under Section 5 and it's number 4. Does the Conservation Commission allow that to be done within 100 feet of a resource area?
It's not the motion, though.
I think, so, I'm sorry, but the motion is, perhaps needs to be revised, but I'm just asking a question now on this point. So anyway, all right, let's finish that, we'll come back to this then.
I have one, I'm just looking at section 4 and I'm looking at golf courses and I'm asking myself whether anything golf courses do would be limited by the performance standards under 4 at all. I don't think, the only possible one is application of nitrogen between October 16 and April 14. That's the only one that they might possibly want to. The others are, except for this one that they're going to be prohibited from doing, 4D, there's none of the others are going to bother them. I mean, they're not going to want to apply nitrogen directly before or during a heavy rain event. They wouldn't do that.
Point of order here. I hate to do this. We went through this.
Yeah.
We put it before the selectmen. We're covering old ground. Golf courses are exempt. Period. This line in here under item 2 that we are making a motion on is actually, I agree, a little bit on the confusing side. It turns out whether that line, however, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D is in there or not. Golf courses.
Excuse me, Steve, just a moment, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is not what we put before the selectmen, okay? there are two things in here that are at least not before, that were not put before the
I
selectmen.
made a motion to accept them.
But you just said that everything in here was put before the selectmen.
I apologize. Everything within here was put before the selectmen, except for the line, however, golf course is not exempt from performance standard 4D, and the line director of the Department of Natural Resources or its designee. I am talking specifically to section 5, item 2, however, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D. That line was added in there and clarified through, as we hear, town council. It was in there so that we did not wind up with what is in essence an ambiguity between an extant bylaw and this proposed bylaw, so that somebody did not come forth and say, you know, we are no longer under the purview of the Wetlands Protection Bylaw by virtue of the fact that we had granted an exemption under 5.2. This just closed the loophole that could be created by somebody saying, well, it used to be that we could never put it within 100 feet of the resource areas, but we've been granted an exemption by the fertilizer bylaw. So that is the intent and purpose of the clarification in line 2, and solely the intended purpose of that clarification in line 2.
Got it. Matt?
And I will verify that because I'm the one who asked for that change.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Anyway, if you want to vote on those two things, we still have this issue of the application, which is,
Well, you could offer a further amendment.
right, I can do it. Finish this one. Okay, this
Well, no,
one's fine,
if you-
okay.
If you want to,
You know, I think it makes sense to deal with the issues, just so long as Ron gets to make his case
well,
on
that would be,
appointment.
that would be on a further amendment, so.
A further amendment to this, but
Well,
we
we-
have a motion on the floor, is what I'm saying,
To amend, to amend the motion, right?
for two specific things. So let's deal with that motion, and then let there be a second motion
Oh,
if there's an additional
All right,
amendment.
okay. Any further discussion on Steve's motion that adds this underlined section, two underlined sections, to the approved version that we put out of that other opinion? On that point?
Yeah, the only point is that do we want to make any other recommended changes and make it one motion is the thing.
Just decided not to do that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Any further motions?
right.
Okay, it says that, I'm not clear about this, but my understanding, having had waterfront property, is that I couldn't do anything within 100 feet legally. I couldn't like pick up a leaf in that area. That's the nature. And here we're saying that we can apply the application of nitrogen established in new vegetation in the first growing season or repairing turf in the first growing, okay, so this is, if you're within 100 feet, can you do that? Can you put fertilizer within 100 feet if you're going to be reestablishing, trying to establish something in that area?
I would say let's ask the Concom what their guidance would be under those two under that
Yeah.
circumstance.
Right, and I can add clarification. The answer is yes. That's where that language came from. Conservation Commission in their guidelines has followed Falmouth Friendly Lawns, and what Falmouth Friendly Lawns says is for establishing new turf, they want you to put 6 inches of loam and do some other stuff, and you can establish. And what I'll do tomorrow is I will email you, and I've emailed it before. I didn't bring that particular folder with me because I didn't think we were opening up the whole bylaw again. But tomorrow I can email you what conservation puts in its conditions about establishing new lawn. So you will see it.
Well, yeah, and rather than get into the weeds, I think we'll take our version and send it to Concom for comment. And then they may have a comment that helps clarify and
Right.
like it the way it is.
They may have additional.
Well, okay, well, so far, I think that I think these two changes are much better than what we voted on before. And that, especially the consulting with the enforcement authority, the envisioned, which wasn't apparently done ahead of time, I guess. So, so it's good to have that Chuck has agreed, well, Chuck, I mean, I don't know he's the acting director of the Department of Natural Resources, so it's good that he has given that opinion. I assume that whoever ends up in this position, him or somebody else, would be acceptable. I mean, once it's passed, it's their job. Yeah. So that's, yeah, so I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay,
Sure.
yes, Steve.
I would suggest that not, I like the idea of sending it to Concom, but that not just be sent to them, but also be pointed out to them that they should study the interactions between Section 4 and Section 5 with great care.
I thought Sia said that it is consistent with Concord.
I'm pretty sure it is. We're gonna
In other words,
triple check.
if I'm selling, if it's a vegetable garden, I can have it within 100 feet?
This is,
That's how we-
that's my point, is that
No, that's Ron's point. I don't think you guys realize that.
it's a
If I'm
first,
selling it, or if it's a garden, it's exempt from Section 4.
new vegetation, whatever that might be.
So you took care of that with the new wording in 5.2, but the other ones still get you out of the 100 feet of the resource area.
Horticulture, farming is almost exempt from anything. They can put a fruit stand out on the side of the road, and that's legal.
But but 5.3 is unpaid ones.
I'm just saying that they have very broad
Right. Well,
exemptions for.
we're gonna send it to Concom, and they will look at this, and we have another meeting in 2 weeks, and if they come back with some serious objections, we'll take them up.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
I just want to make a general comment. Because of the time crunch of working on the CWMP, we didn't have time to really vet this bylaw before it had to be submitted to the warrant. And so that's sort of happening now, and it's a necessary process, so I don't see anything wrong with the various ideas that are being raised. And I should think in that vein, FACES has been supportive of having a fertilizer bylaw for nearly a decade. And they are really, FACES is all capitals, FACES. And so they are really interested that finally there is something that looks like it will at least get town meeting discussion. So they've asked to just have some FACES members meet. I'm going to meet with them on Monday. Just to go through where we are now. They're going to have additional ideas, and so we can expect that there will continue to be feedback.
Anyone else who wants to go to that meeting is welcome
Yeah,
to.
I'm
It's,
planning to go.
Yeah, Sue's going to go.
it's at the library
Yeah,
at
it's
5 o'clock,
What time?
4:30.
4:30. We have just an hour, and before the library closes, and it's really to hear what their thoughts are on this.
And they have a copy, a draft.
They have a copy. It probably doesn't have the underlined portion.
No.
Right. So you
So
can,
there's a public meeting on this,
Well, it's a FACES
yeah, they're
workshop.
they're
It's
not
not,
a
I wouldn't
town
even call it a
committee.
workshop. It's sort of a FACES subcommittee that's interested in one particular topic, which is this fertilizer bylaw.
and when is that?
It's at 4:30
What day?
on Monday.
At the library.
I
At
think
the
I should be
library.
there.
This Monday.
Yes.
All right, item number 4. One of the town meeting articles that is going to be on the warrant is one that was filed by Andrew Bunker, which you all have a copy of.
Last page.
Oh, do you?
Yep, you do.
It's on the
You can
back.
have that little handout to see it, Brad. If you could.
Oh, okay, fine, great.
It's in there somewhere.
All right,
There
got
you
it,
go.
yeah.
Small print, there you go. So I guess we can all read it where it says art, that's the article. And if you just read through there, you'll see what Mr. Bunker's asking the town meeting to do.
This was distributed to everybody before the meeting, so we've all had a chance to read it,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Are you asking for comments? Or is it for information at this point? I mean,
At this
it's a
point-
citizen's petition, right?
At this point, it's for informational purposes, because it obviously relates to what we've been doing.
Also, I think that we should try and get, he presented at the Monday, I was there on Monday night for the, as several of us were there for the review of the citizens petitions that went on the warrant. And he gave a presentation that he presented to the selectmen in writing. And I think it would be good just for our own knowledge that we can get a copy from the selectmen of that, that there's a lot more that he mentioned in that note than what's obviously can be accommodated on a warrant. So I would suggest that we try and get a copy of that.
So get Bunker's meeting notes.
Yeah, the one that he read a statement and presented it to the selectmen.
Yeah, I mean, he raises issues that I think we're all cognizant of, and my understanding is that before anything goes forward on these sites, these issues would have to be addressed.
Yeah, I guess the question I would ask, Mr. Chair, is prior to town meeting, this board should probably establish if we want to say something relative to this article, and if so, what we want to say. But I might speak to just the article in itself, I think states nothing that we wouldn't already be intending to do, with the exception of the very last sentence, which I think is ambiguous and could be interpreted several ways and probably needs some level of clarification. Because if completing the transfer of land is deemed to be an action relative to utilizing either site without having actually committed any funds or anything, I would say that might be against the long-term interests of the possible program. Okay.
We'll have several meetings before the town meeting, and as this thing gets acted upon and evolves, we'll keep an eye on that piece.
On this point, if I might, the main thing is that there was a comprehensive study done of Site 7 and Site 10, and it's in Technical Memorandum number 9. And if we all look at that technical memorandum, it's got maps, charts, all sorts of water bodies listed that are downstream in the groundwater flow. Crocker Pond is the closest, and it's also abutted by the Salt Pond Bird Sanctuary site at Bourne Farm. And that pond, although it was on the map, and you can almost see it from Site 7, it was not even looked at as an option. So I think his concern here is that is not even that's not even in the radar screen. It's not even on the map as far as any documents that we have regarding those two sites. So that's one point that I think he was making here. From our reading of, I mean, you can look at Technical Memorandum 9, it's very clear it's not there. The second aspect is that there is a financial aspect to the swapping of the parcels, and that is something that needs to be factored in, because there could be significant loss to the town in terms of value as far as land for land is concerned. If you look at the appraisal reports and do an analysis of those, you'll see something there. But that aside, I think that these are factors that are real. And if you gave someone Technical Memorandum number 9 to a firm that was going to do an environmental impact assessment, and they did an assessment and they based it just on that, they might, and missed it the way GHD did, it's an issue that I think that he's trying to bring up, and he'd like the town to support his viewpoint, from what I'm reading and from what he stated.
The issue of value is over. Town meeting heard your position on that. They heard a number of people's position on that, and they spoke. So that piece is over. The question of environmental impact is not over because the studies haven't been done.
Right.
Virginia.
There are only preliminary studies so far on Crocker Pond, and so there definitely is much additional work to be done, and most people who know about developing a site for discharge know that there is this checklist that still has to be gone through. Crocker Pond has been of concern from the very beginning, and so when the pricing for sewering using the West Falmouth plant for treatment and adjacent land for discharge, when those costs were assembled, they also specifically included additional phosphorus treatment if needed, and it's phosphorus that's the limiting factor for freshwater ponds. So it's not that Mr. Bunker is in a butter, and he's right to be concerned, and it is a beautiful pond. I've visited it. I've been to the Bourne Farm, and he's raising legitimate questions. The point I want to make is that that the engineers are aware of that and that this will be covered. And in fact, some funding has, in terms of potential expenses, it's already been put into the planning package.
Okay, Matt?
Can you describe the studies that are ongoing now and what they will cover? And I'm the one who raised that issue, especially in this meeting and in town meeting floor, about the phosphorus coming from this discharge.
There have been 3 preliminary checks done so far, and then until we get the feedback from MEPA on the entire Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, which will include comments on Site 7, until we get that back, we won't actually do any additional studies. So there's nothing ongoing at this moment, which is the point I'm making. Right. But there was an archaeological survey done, there was a perk test done, and I'm forgetting what the third, there was some third element that was evaluated. And I'm sorry, I'm not remembering it.
Natural heritage.
Natural heritage, thank you, that's what it was.
Box turtle.
Yeah.
But that gets back to Steve's point. We don't want to go ahead and spend money on studies and then have them roll in and say, well, you didn't look at this, you didn't look at that. We want to hear from them ahead of time what they want us to look at, and then we'll go look at it.
Right.
Steve?
Do we need to ask town council, to get it on its docket so that it's done in time for town meeting, whether action to utilize includes purchase or whatever? The question you were bringing, that's what you were concerned about before. I think Eric mentioned that
Prior to the town taking any action to utilize either site. Utilizing either site is several years away.
But somebody, I think it was Eric, or maybe Steve, said, does that include the actions to transfer the land?
We haven't made a decision about what we want to say about this article.
The town
But
has
if I was to
already.
go down that path, I would contend that we're very likely, on the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan we just submitted, to be told by the MEPA agency that we will do exactly what it says, all the way up to, but not the last line, okay? Said any action. We can't get approval out of the MEPA folks. I would venture to say, based upon virtually every other project that's proposed putting any significant, any amount over 15,000 gallons of wastewater that needs to be land applied, treated or untreated, almost automatically triggers a series of MEPA criteria. Okay? So, although we've done some initial work to indicate the potential of Site 7, I would not characterize it yet as a comprehensive evaluation. And I would fully expect that you folks do. So we may find ourselves at the time of town meeting already having been directed to do everything it says in here. And so we should just, to a certain extent, decide how we want to approach it as the article stands at town meeting, and then see what unfolds with the MEPA process.
I guess I misunderstood you. I thought you meant that we could be in a bind if action to utilize was construed to mean transfer.
We could always get up and say we have no objection to everything up to the last sentence. That, we have to do that in order to get by the MEPA process anyways, and we'd like the last sentence taken out because it's counterproductive.
Right, we'll have a chance to talk about that before the meeting and at the meeting.
How will MEPA know Crocker Pond exists? It's not in any of the reports.
Well, I would suppose Andrew P. Bunker could.
Which one?
I will have to find it for you, but I am sure.
It's not. I've gone through it with a comb. It's not there. Are you sure?
Let me ask you a question. Would you like to give Mr. Andrew P. Bunker the information of where the MEPA address is so we can make a comment to them? And once they hear from him, they will put it onto the agenda.
I think that's a good suggestion.
The coalition proposers bay will also be offering their comments in the course of the MEPA process. So
And hopefully if he's watching the results of this proceeding, he'll understand that he has that right.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if he's watching this, but I mean, I can try and reach him as well. He can and tell him and advise him to contact them and send his whatever his.
That handout I gave at the last meeting is posted on the Water Quality Management webpage, first or second document. If he goes to there, he can see all the instructions about who, where, and how to submit his comments and concerns.
Okay. Good. All right.
I think any further comment on Andrew Bunker's article? I think we're there. Number 5, review of the MEPA request for 4-week extension. Jerry's not here, but you were at the selectmen's meeting,
And it's been voted.
so they gave him an extension.
So, yes, the MEPA analysis, the MEPA analyst originally asked for 2 weeks and then asked for 4 weeks. So I don't have my calendar with me. But it means that the comment period closes something like
Well,
November 4th.
it was October 4th. I
It
thought.
was October 4th, it's November 2nd.
November 2nd,
Comment
okay.
period closes November 2nd, and the certificate with the advice to the town as to what we should be doing will be issued on November 9th. And then town meeting, I believe, is the following week.
Number 6, Echo Toilet RFP revisions, Sia and Wynn.
See ya.
Have something to say on that?
We are looking at the old RFP, and because the incentive program is actually rolling right now, tasks 1 and 2 had to get completed to make that possible. So we've done tasks 1 and 2, so Wynn and I need to sit down and look at what remains in task 3, which is really the public outreach component. So it was really the public outreach, public education, as perhaps for the purposes of the RFP, going out on the street for that. And recognizing that since we've done tasks 1 and 2 and are in fact doing the implementation, there's no point in having somebody do what's already been done. I mean, Jesse did stuff this summer, I've continued to do stuff, Jesse's working on another technical component right now. I think we just need to sit down with Matt and Wynn and look at the RFP again and whoever else and recognize, just kind of cross up what's already been done and get the RFP out for what we still need.
In other words, modifying the RFP to exclude what we have already done. We said in the RFP in the beginning, we were going to start this work, understanding that they would complete it. We haven't done everything in 1 and 2, but we're on the way to doing everything in 1 and 2.
Yeah.
We will have it finished by the end of the year. The report that you need to write about that will be available by the end of this year, which is when we said it would be. And 4, we need to discuss. I read it again the other day and reminded myself that what we had said was that toward the end of the year, 4 could be written because by that time we would have enough information to go forward and write a preliminary study of what we had to do in order to complete the project and make sure that when the project was completed, it represented a statement of what the town can do with eco-toilets. And then place it before the committee at that point, and then they could decide what to do. But that was what 4 was intended to do. And I think we need to look again at whether we need to do 4 right now.
Well, there's no point in spending the town's money on something that's either been done or is being done in-house already. So you 2 or 3 should, or 4, or however many want to get involved should do that before we
Get it out on the street, yes. Next week.
Okay, further comment on that? The next one, once again, in your handout, we've got a sheet that talks about RFP tracking.
Oh, RFPs, yes. I thought we were at 0% long. That I did not copy.
RFP.
I'm just writing myself a note.
RFP tracking, and Ron has some observations on some sort of larger scale observations than just checking dates here about where we are, but where we ought to be going.
Right.
But why don't we start with where we are?
Okay, where we are.
Okay,
I just wrote it out as a little table to make it clear. We've got 3 that 2 have closed. 1 is closing at the end of the month. We have been diligent.
Well, let's do one by engineering services.
The engineering services closed on September 5th, and there is a selection committee, and they are in process, and maybe one of the members from this board who's on the committee
I don't think they can talk about it.
Can't talk about it.
Fine.
That, we don't know anything, we just know that they're in the process of evaluating those RFPs. Aquaculture closed on the 29th of August, and again, there is a selection committee, and they are in process.
well, when are they expected, pardon me, sorry. Oh, no, when are they expected to deliver their decision?
I asked Jerry yesterday, and he did not, there is no deadline.
It's
What's the
it's something in the
typical
RFP?
duration? Does it usually take a month?
No.
It does not take a month,
No.
but we are keeping a very tight lid on all of this so that there's no opportunity for somebody to misstep and have to redo the process.
The selection committee is working on it.
Now, is there anything in the RFP that says schedule? No, there's nothing about schedule or decisions?
Not for selection, absolutely not, no.
Okay, good, okay.
PRBs close on September 27th.
And we do not have a selection committee. The town manager will establish that at the right time.
Which one was that?
PRBs.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Sure. We are, I today in fact sent a revision on the Oyster Pond RFP. We met, Steve and Jerry and I met Tuesday
We had a good discussion.
and had an excellent discussion, and
Okay.
we're now finalizing. I wrote out that we didn't have a deliverable section in that one, and once we got through the tasks, I put the deliverables together, and Jerry has it now, and soon.
Mhm.
Soon, we're making great progress. And the stormwater, our plan was to dive into that as soon as Oyster Pond has been put on the street. And Wynn and I and Matt and anyone else, I'm gonna put out an email requesting a meeting date so we can go over that one and have that one ready to go.
Could I make a suggestion? I think that eco-toilets, because we've worked on the RFP a number of times and it's sort of was ready to start and then it was put on pause and everything, that you should work on that one before you work on the stormwater.
Yeah.
I think we should get it crystallized and get it out. If it's public education is what you need, you want it rolling at the same time that we're doing all these other pieces. So
Sure.
in terms of priority, I think it's more important than the stormwater.
Yep.
Good,
Great.
thank you, thank you.
Baseline monitoring.
The scope came in yesterday afternoon. I have not even opened it. I'm sorry to say. Today was much too full of other things.
But it's worth noting the selectmen did approve it on the 17th of
And
September.
the selectmen approved it on the
Okay.
17th. I'm gonna look at it first thing tomorrow morning.
Great,
And you have it too, Eric.
great. Actually, they sent it and it was too fat for my server to take for some reason. I don't know.
Do you want me to resend it?
Actually, what you need to do is, I don't know why, but this is happening with documents you've been sending out as attachments here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to open it, which is, it'll open up, but then it won't print for you,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
You have to resave it to a different location on your
Mhm.
computer as the,
Like put it on your
PDF.
hard drive?
Okay,
you open up the PDF and when you go to click on it, it will say, can't find anything, can't print it.
Yeah.
You need to save it to a different, you save it
Document.
somewhere, okay? You downloaded it or you opened it. I found even if I downloaded it to a directory and opened it from the directory, it would not print. But if once I'd downloaded to a directory and opened it,
Mhm.
I then went and saved it
Mhm.
as a new document.
Mhm.
You know, I just put a V2 or whatever at the end of the PDF name. I could
Really?
then open, yeah, this happens with the PDF things once in a while.
Okay.
You should get a Mac.
It's under the SH phenomenon, the way computers work sometimes, okay? I first learned this by managing to find out that I could print out 60 or some odd pages of somebody's sewer regulations, Chatham's or somebody, and I regretted that once it got to my printer because I couldn't shut it off.
Okay, so that's good stuff.
All right,
Yeah, that's how you have to print this one.
yeah. Ron, you
Oh,
want to?
great, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I had sent around a memo about a month ago, talking about an acronym that I forgot, but measures to rapidly improve estuary water quality. And the idea is basically that as we progress, we're looking at this sort of multi-track way of going. We're doing all of these activities that are being done on separate tracks or in some ways integrated. Well, it's a very much integrated program. But we're looking at the urgency at the moment and considering that our real objective that we're trying to achieve is to improve estuary water quality. It's degrading, and we know that, and it's increasingly getting worse. Basically, the Little Pond incident this summer is one example. But the notion then is that how do we look at this and think about it in terms of doing it in the quickest way possible? And the way, and so a couple of things are that we're looking at expanding the central sewer system, doing eco toilets, doing shellfish, doing the variety of things from inlet widening, fertilizer control, and PRBs. And what I'm looking at now and thinking about is that if we look at the situation that we're in, and if we were to progress through a plan, let's say for central sewers or for other approaches, it's sort of estimated that the lower, below south of 28 area would take until about 2040 to have that area dealt with, basically, whichever way it goes. That's kind of the estimate. And that doesn't include the conceptual water quality compliance area, which is north of 28, or like phase 3. Phase 1 and 2 is south, phase 3 is north. And if we look at that, that means that there's probably going to be another 20 years, maybe 2060, before really the nitrogen loading is fully under control, entering it through these dealing with septic impacts. And so directly. And so it appears that we might wish to look at this in another way, which might take a relatively minor adjustment to what we have in the draft, in the comprehensive plan. And that adjustment is saying, okay, what will have the quickest impact, potentially? And one is, we've been looking at clearly inlet widening, that's moving forward. Could be the shellfish aquaculture by taking nitrogen directly out of the estuaries to help with controlling the nutrient levels. And a third element in this would be that the permeable reactive barriers, if that proves to be feasible and also practical to do and cost effective. And then of course fertilizer controls, runoff controls, these things all play into this quick approach in dealing with it. So what I'm suggesting is that in this pertains somewhat to the proposals or to the activities, is to initiate, as we have with the inlet widening, the permitting process for PRBs. We don't know if they're going to work for sure, or how they're going to work, or where they can go yet. But we have, I think that starting even next month, to scope out, and maybe this is something one of the consultants can do, but to scope out the steps toward getting this permitted. Because if it turns out that they do work and they're effective, that we may very quickly be able to, say in the next 10 years, get certain activities in place that will stop the nitrogen at the door, mostly, from entering these estuaries, from groundwater inflows. So I think that we don't have it in our plan as far as timing as a line item in the plan, but we may wish to consider and discuss this once the consultant's on board, or however this works out, of kind of looking at what can be done that might very well in the next 10 years. And while that's happening, we don't drop the other activities. Those continue. And that we're looking then at a long-term approach. So it's kind of putting some priority on trying to do everything that is most cost-effective for estuary recovery, and then at the same time looking at the longer-term approach, because in this plan, the original sewer plan was, would be going out for the next 50, 60 years. If that were that's been dropped. But the thing is that originally that was the case, and it's excellent that the review committee reconsidered that and came up with a new proposal. But I think that now, as we start moving, we get a better understanding. We may learn that the permeable reactive barriers in particular may be a major intervention that can really help water quality on the short term and be implemented relatively quickly. I've spoken with the Conservation Commission about this to a degree, and it gets into, as soon as you move up in terms of impacts in this sort of resource area or along the shore if that turns out to be the case, then suddenly MEPA approvals have to come, other agencies start coming in. So it's to understand really what would be entailed, so that if in the next, like with the inlet widening, they said it would take 3 to 5 years to get a permit or something. I mean, it was, when that discussion we had with Concom, it was a long-term thing. With PRBs, it may be a similar period. So what it means then is that if they prove to be good in 2 or 3 years from now, or 4 years, whenever it is, if it proves to be a very effective approach to dealing with our problem, we'll be ready to implement. Because otherwise we'd have to start the process then, and then it would take those years further out before we'd get a permit. So the notion now is scope it out, see what steps would take, and I think the cost would be relatively minimal. Even if they prove not to be as effective, it's a relatively small investment that would be required. So it's a notion of trying to get that more toward a front burner, the permitting process on a front burner. Well, parallel tracks. Yeah, I mean, I look at one parallel track is sewers and denitrifying septic systems and eco toilets.
Right.
That's the septic system side of things.
But the one,
So, yeah.
the one you want is, while you're seeing if it works, you want to see what the permitting would be if it did work.
Right, and we'll see how that works and work out a plan and start to take actions that are necessary as we get the information. It's just to be prepared. It's sort of anticipating what may come. It's not preempting or assuming anything. It's just saying, okay, well, if it does work, let's be ready to jump in. That's the idea. So
Fair
that's the idea. So.
Comments from others? Virginia?
I'm glad to hear enthusiasm about permeable reactive barriers, and the permitting is definitely an issue. I believe the existing request for proposal, which we don't have the proposals in yet, but certainly the company that is hired to look at specific sites in West Falmouth and in East Falmouth for PRBs will definitely be making a laundry list, a checklist of what permitting issues would be involved. The state still is very skeptical about PRBs, and so this is a case where the town is really on the leading edge. We're going to have to prove to them that it works. And they're going to certainly ask, well, if it works now, will it still be working 10 years from now? There's a lot of skepticism about whether it will last more than 10 years. So the point I'm leading up to is that it's not possible to, it will be possible to make a generic list of these are the kinds of permits that will be required. But it's not possible to fast forward a generic permitting for all of Bourne's Pond, East Coast, because the regulatory agencies only react to specific projects that are actually going to be implemented. They don't react to theoretical. What they will be looking at is whatever it is that we build. The second point I want to make is part of your preamble in getting into this discussion about prioritizing. The CWMP, as currently submitted, does have a time frame that takes us out to 2040 because it's based on funding when the town is able to fund, based on old debt being retired and new debt being acquired. It does not presume that we will somehow, as a county, succeed in finding other funding sources. If that does come about, which is what the Cape Cod Commission and the Collaborative and the Chamber of Commerce are all saying, that across the county it is the amount of money that is needed to do the nitrogen management that is needed, that just those funds just aren't there. We somehow have to access larger funding source similar to some sort of federal funding source. So we have a timetable in the CWMP, which is the best effort that the town can make at this point. But that is not to say that 10 years from now, there wouldn't have been a change in potential funding sources. So there may be an acceleration of ways to manage nitrogen that we don't know yet.
When?
I think Virginia's put her finger on the fundamental problem we have in trying to go forward with implementation, and that is funding.
Mhm.
And Andrew Gottlieb said the same thing last night.
He certainly
basically.
did. Mhm.
I think we're going to have to develop a long discussion, long meaning a month or so, of funding, because I think we're going to have to find inventive ways of doing it to push forward exactly for the reason that Ron is saying. It would take too long if we depend upon Falmouth funding that comes up simply from the paying off of debt. We cannot wait that long. We've got to do something sooner,
It's our only tool at this point.
but we've got to find other
But we're
tools.
looking for more tools.
We've got to find other tools.
Steve?
The RFP for the PRBs is due roughly 1 week from today. You were a member of the subcommittee that assembled the scope of work.
Oh.
So was it just you and I?
Yeah.
But you read it when we brought it in here for everybody to see.
I must have seen it, yes.
And as Virginia points out, there is specific tasks in there to develop the permitting plan.
I have it up right here.
No, we're not going to read it out
No,
loud.
we're not going to read it.
I guess I would suggest that
It's
if,
the second task.
I guess I would suggest that,
Second task.
that, you know, the way it was structured was that people were to be looking at optimum locations, looking at constraints, looking at permit requirements. That as that portion of that work gets to a certain point, if the conclusion of that, as it's delivered to this committee at some point over the next several months, is that there are areas that are highly advantageous, and it makes some sense to begin pushing the permitting process, it could happen at that point in time. But I don't think it would be prudent right now to postpone the RFP process to reopen the scope of work.
No, I'm not saying it, right, I agree.
Okay.
yeah.
I was concerned that you were
No.
suggesting that there was a piece of work that
No.
needs to be done
Yeah, actually-
now that was not in that scope of work.
Right. No, I'm just, okay, let me respond to that. What I'm saying is that we don't have it in this, in the schedule, okay, specifically in here about when that's going to start. We've got inlet widening, the permitting process is going on, this kind of thing. The other thing is that also, you may recall that the engineers RFP also has a phrase in it about PRBs. So there's also that support that could come to this as well, if so designated. It's, the second thing is that regardless how long these last, these things, if it's 10 years, 20 years, Steve actually said he thought they'd last much longer, but again, a discussion we had. But the point is that we're still working behind them to do what's needed to deal with things and get things done right, if it's eco-toilets, whatever it may be. It doesn't stop any of that. It's just basically looking at that. And on the funding question, I mean, the selectmen are very clear that we can't assume that we're going to be taking every dime of retired debt, basically, for wastewater. They made it, that their changes are in here that reflect that.
No question.
So I think that if we're looking at it, and if the, if funding comes from the federal government, state government, county, I mean, people are not all that, haven't been optimistically talking about that. I mean, it's maybe a little wishful thinking. Maybe something will happen, we don't know. It's a long-term time, it's a lot of time here. But I just think that with the constraints and with the target of what our objective is and the goal, that we start looking at it in terms of what is the quickest way we can deal with the problem. It doesn't mean, and so as I say, the main thing is that, as you point out, okay, in the RFP, they've got this term to do the planning. But I think that is something that may be, that isn't just putting it on paper and saying, okay, here's what has to be done, but actually creating a timetable of actions. And so that would be what I would, that's the main point of my memo, is to bring up those quickest, because I think that with the inlet widening, it's going to take years, we found out a few years to get that sorted out. And with the shellfish, I think it can come pretty quickly. I think we can get permits within a year, I would think, if the way with all of the discussion with the Division of Marine Fisheries and other agencies, there's a possibility of moving quicker on that. So it might be that we can get to the target. And I think coming back to what Steve was saying at the beginning about, we have to know about what we're monitoring and this kind of thing. And I think Jerry's been very good about talking with Brian Dudley about that, about the monitoring program. And we're getting there. But this is where there is a bit of a dichotomy. The target, the objective of our program is to reach what's termed the sentinel threshold, which is a certain nitrogen concentration in the estuaries. That's what we're after. We may achieve that with PRBs, with shellfish, with inlet widening, with fertilizer, stormwater runoff controls. We may achieve that, but the TMDL would then have to be recalculated somehow that way. And at the moment, this is where the challenge is. At the moment, there are only two technologies that allow nitrogen reduction credit at the moment in the state. Sewers and denitrifying septic, certain denitrifying septic systems. That's all. So if we, I don't know when this is all going to change, but if we get good results, I don't know if it's going to be overnight that they're going to say, okay, PRBs give you so much credit. I don't think it may happen.
It won't be
so it's going to be, no. So it's going to be something where we have to look at this in terms of the town's interests,
Right.
and then try and argue the case that we want to proceed in a certain way that may be a pilot study that they may say, okay, this looks good, yeah.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
if and when it changes, it'll be because the town of Falmouth's effort in terms of
Right.
pre-monitoring, monitoring during the experiment and measuring it all afterwards. We are the cutting edge on all these things,
Yeah.
as far as I can tell,
It-
in the state of Massachusetts. Does that seem fair?
Is anybody else on the Cape thinking about PRBs at this
Yes.
point?
Yeah. The other communities are thinking we are ahead
On that.
of the other communities, but they're coming very close behind. One of the things that came out at the meeting I went to is that the state is realizing that nobody in the Cape is going to come marching through the door with a plan to do sewering from front to back. That they're all going to come marching through the door looking for, floating islands was one of the ones that I heard about that I had not heard about before. Building these sort of floating ecosystems in some of the bigger bays and whatnot.
John Todd's kind of
I'm
thing.
just saying those things. So we're not looking at those because I don't think they fit in some of our estuaries. But it was interesting to hear you articulate, and I'm glad to hear that. You're articulating that whichever technology or solution may be the most readily permittable and can be done the quickest should be the one we're focusing on. So you're suggesting that we should probably at some point take a critical look at whether or not it's easier to permit sewers than permit PRBs or easier to permit inlet widening. And whichever one is the easiest to permit is the one we should push to do the quickest.
That's not what I said.
No,
Wait,
it's a
I-
permit.
That's not what I
I
said.
think you said, I think you said,
That's the opposite of what I said.
no, I think
That's the opposite. That's not what I said. I said the town. No, that's not what I said. That's not, what I said is that we may, as a town, I'm not the town, but the town, whatever that means, the Board of Selectmen may have to say, look, we're going to invest our money, we're going to do it here. And we're going to take the courage on this, and we're going to move ahead with these other permittable things, or the other options. But not to say that we're going to say, oh, well, the easiest thing permittable is what we're going to do, because we go right back to possibly the sewer thing that the review committee had dropped. So I think that it may take a point, which is going to take a lot of educating. Our demonstrations will be critical in this process. And then the town will have to make decisions on what it's going to do and whether it's going to say, look, we want to save our estuaries. This is what we're after. This is working. And now it may take 5 years to permit to permit that, but maybe we can get a permit to put them in. Maybe not nitrogen reduction credit, to put them in.
The minutes will reflect Mr. Zweig was not advocating a speedy installation of sewers.
Just one quick comment. I happen to be walking down the beach in Wacoit Bay. The thing is still working. It
Right.
works. There's no algae there for the span of where the PRB is.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing, and that's
so,
great.
Yeah.
Win.
I would like just to say that there's anecdotal evidence this summer but something is cleaning up Walkwhite Bay this summer. The end of the bay, people have been swimming in the water at my end of the bay, which is the most polluted part of it, and they're finding it clearer than they've seen in years. And the shoreline has, yesterday and all of August and all of September so far, there's almost no algae on our beach. This is the first year in many, many years that there's been no algae on the beach this year. I don't know what to suspect, but I suspect at least the possibility that the several million oysters which have been put into the river, which flows around our end of the bay, may have had something to do with cleaning up the water at that end of the bay. I would like to know whether that could be somehow or another.
I spoke with Todd Schlesinger, the
Yes.
Atlantic Oyster Company guy, this morning, actually. He called, and he said that they've got like 5 or 6 million oysters in.
I thought so.
So that's like 2.5 to 3 tons of nitrogen that is being removed with that growth of those oysters.
And it's all flowing around that end of the bay.
area.
Yeah.
So it's a, so he's got them growing there. This is all anecdotal. It's hard to say really it
That's
could
right.
just be, happenstance. But
That's right.
But it seems that this is an action. We know that is happening. He's got them out there. They're doing that. And so we'll see, basically ultimately see over time, if it happens again next year and the year after, we'll know something.
We know something is happening, yeah.
All right. The chair would endeavor to get us out by 10, so we have a few more things on the agenda to deal with. 0% loan developments in, as it turns out, not Orleans at all, but Chatham. Typographical mistake by the chair. But the story is that Chatham has been granted a 0% interest loan. And so we are in the process of obtaining what filings they did and what bylaws or regulation they put in place that was found acceptable, and how they did it. And if it turns out to be something that Falmouth can do without undue discord, we'll take it up and think about it, because obviously it makes a big difference in the financing of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's it as an excellent example. But I actually prefer we don't discuss. We can save time tonight, because I didn't receive this 60-page document until like midday today.
We're
not
not
going to discuss it.
And I haven't had
This is just a heads up.
Don't
just
worry.
a heads up. Oh, okay.
No
All right.
one's had a chance to read it.
Okay, all right, no, I just want, but the other question I have, I would have read it by now, but it was only sent to a very limited distribution list from Jerry, that didn't include the full committee. It only had Eric, and Virginia, and that's all. that he sent
I got it
Is
this
that
afternoon.
right?
See,
I don't think so.
No, I'm here.
No,
You
he
communicate.
first sent it to me.
No, this is last Friday. This is the 14th.
He first sent it to me because I
Yeah.
asked for it.
Right.
And then during the course of this week, I mentioned it to Sia, and we decided it should go to
Yeah,
the
I
whole
didn't
committee.
get it till.
No, I'm not, all I'm saying is that I would like to, perhaps we could have mentioned something. I don't know why he limited it, because he also sent it to Brian Curry, John Waterbury, Matt McNamara, and Ray Jack. But he didn't send it to the committee. He sent it to 2 members of the
You'll have to
committee.
take that up with Jerry, why he sends it to
Well, no,
those
but I
folks,
think we
don't know.
need to ask him that when he gets information, because this was sent on the 14th,
Right.
and we could have possibly had a discussion this evening. as needed, yeah.
None of us are ready for it yet,
Right,
but,
right.
but we will be.
But I would be grateful if somehow we can get a message to Jerry
Ron,
that
you should make that message to him. I mean, he's not consistent.
Well, I'm going to step in here, because we sort of set up a process around one, and the timeline here is not good if you're laying out the way it was. But to the extent that the chair sort of directed back to staff, in this case Jerry, saying, can you get me a copy of this? Who Jerry distributes it to when he sends it back to the chair is something we should probably talk a little bit about with Jerry with. But the chair, once receiving something like that, then decides if it's going on the agenda now, or if it's going to be distributed to people so they have it in their hands to read it, to note that you have it, and then it can be discussed at a future date. So I think we early on did not want people like Sia or Jerry or somebody else just blanketing everybody on the committee with whatever they found at that point, as though it was official committee correspondence, until the chair had a chance to receive it, look at it, and decide where it would fit onto the agenda.
I know, but it didn't just go to the chair. Okay,
We
this
can
is
speak
fine,
to
yeah.
Jerry about that.
You don't want all of Jerry's emails.
Right.
No, but this is a really substantive thing, you know.
No,
This is-
and it's a fair question. And
Yes, absolutely.
He has, on this subject, he has his own idea of who needs to know about it, and for reasons best known to him, he includes in that list the head of the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board and some others. I cannot explain it to you. He probably could.
I mean,
He's not here, and we can't help it.
No, I mean, I can understand, went to the Board of Health via John Waterbury, but not by our vice chair. So it's
Understood.
it's a strange.
It's one of the
Yeah.
burdens we live with.
But on the big picture here, the chair did hear of this, made a request to staff, in this case Jerry, or Sierra, I don't know who he made it to go get the information apparently. This is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And when, upon receiving it, said, yeah, this looks like something that everybody on the committee should get. Please see that everybody on the committee gets it. I'll put it on the agenda.
You've got it, but there's no action to be taken.
No action.
It
No,
just-
actually, no, it's okay. I thought it was to discuss it, and I felt like, by the time I got it, I had something else to do
I move that we
today.
approve this lengthy bylaw, 60-some pages long, for the town of Chapman, only as applicable in the town of Chapman.
Future date, moving on.
Let's approve it for the town of Orleans.
Approve for the town of Orleans.
That's right. That's right. It was a better release anyway.
We're obviously
Don't
getting
forget that.
punchy.
Steve,
Ron, in defense of what Eric and Steve just said, before you were on the committee, it is absolutely true that Jerry erred in the other direction to unbelievable excess. So be careful that you don't start that again.
I don't mind getting information of any kind.
some of it is information. All right, number 9, review and vote on acceptance of minutes of September 6th. Everybody got those?
Yes.
In the email, were there any additions or corrections to be made?
don't.
Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adopt them as
So
presented. Moved and
Seconded?
seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Okay, correspondence. I made a contact with the chairman of the Coastal Ponds Committee, and I have a piece of correspondence from him saying that his next meeting is October 1st, and I will go to bring them up to speed as to what we're doing. Other members who would like to go are certainly welcome. It's October 1st at 7 p.m.
It's in a funny location.
Right.
It's at the pumping.
It's the water department pumping
On Long
station.
Pond
Look at this.
Okay, so that's,
at 7 p.m.
right, the pumping station. Because once you get in there, it'll be dark.
Yes.
So,
Just keep going downhill, and when the paved road finally ends, it's that
Or
building.
water comes up in the car.
And if you
No,
keep
wait,
going,
wait.
you're gonna get wet.
No, but right at that point, you go to the right is where the natural resources folks are.
I think it's in there.
It's in that building,
It's in that
okay.
building.
I know.
It's in their office, that's right.
Right.
What is October 1st? Is that a
Monday.
it's a Monday? Thank
Monday.
you.
Does the committee want me to go?
No.
No.
But you might notify, I'll notify them. No, well, if more than a quorum of us go, do we have to do something about that?
No.
No.
If there's a quorum at the meeting, then it's a joint meeting and you should post it.
Oh,
Okay, well,
Well-
we'll make a point of doing that, because
Okay,
we don't
just-
want to get any hassles over that.
Yeah.
Steve,
Right.
can you post it, or do you want me to?
Do,
Yeah, post it as a joint meeting, and obviously, we're just going there to exchange notes as to what we've been doing, and
but when
But no action to be
when we
taken.
met with the
Concom.
well, Concom plus in this room, we met with the Community Preservation Committee. And we know many of us there. I suppose we had
Right.
that notified or somehow. Or maybe it was on their
Well-
agenda. I think it was on their agenda.
Their agenda. Well, we'll make sure we're on their agenda.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we'll do what we need to do
Okay,
to
all right.
keep ourselves,
As just a
Out of
belt
jail.
and suspenders,
yeah,
post it as a.
sure.
Right.
I would
Can't
recommend
hurt, might help.
okay.
Yeah.
What time, Dave?
That would be at 7 o'clock on the 1st of October at the at that office down at the bottom of the hill,
Right,
by the pond.
By the pond, right.
Long
Right.
Pond Pumping Station.
Okay, last item, which is not correspondence exactly, but we had talked during the summer about doing a road trip to look at other alternatives to deep gravity sewer systems. And I asked Jerry recently to identify different locations where it would be good to go. the low-pressure grinder system, which seems to be the most viable alternative, at least the ones that have been most used in this part of the world, both Tisbury and Oak Bluffs have put them in recently. Tisbury maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and Oak Bluffs, Tisbury maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and Oak Bluffs maybe 10 to 15 years ago. So they both have them up and running, and they'd be happy to have us come over and do a field trip to visit them. So
What's it called, a low what?
these are called low-pressure grinder systems.
Grinder.
So I'll contact them about a suitable date, and I'll pass it around, and anybody who wants to take a trip to the vineyard to see these things should come.
If it were on a Friday, would that be
Would that
possible
work for you?
During the week, I know it's not really good, or not a good idea.
Well, don't wait for me. It doesn't matter if I go.
But their plants are running on weekends too, like on Saturdays, so I'm not sure if anybody's there.
Yeah, the issue isn't so much the plants,
It's technicians.
the
Staff.
home
Staff.
installations,
I know, that's
the
what I mean.
the staff has to be
I think it's gonna end
there
up being a weekday.
a weekday, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
But is there any days that are particularly good or bad before I contact these folks?
Well, I think the end of the week is better.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't,
Personally, if it makes sense, you want to schedule for the same day that we're going to do a meeting in the evening, because oftentimes when I know that there's a meeting on
that's
Thursday, I will tend to be more in the area than away from the area.
Okay.
okay, so that would
And
make
on a
it,
selfish basis, my boat will stay on the water till as late as possible, and if the weather's good on Friday, I might go to the vineyard, but not with you.
Not with us, and not to look at grinder systems.
Not to look at grinder systems.
Also, I don't remember how the frequency of ferry trips steps down as you get into fall, but it does.
It does after Columbus Day weekend, it goes to a shorter schedule.
Once you get off the shoulders, they drop a couple
so
of them.
our next meeting is in 2 weeks. Do we
Right.
want to ask for it to be that day?
Okay.
To fit your schedule?
That would be October 4th, but I think, isn't that the day there's a hearing at the library with
Oh,
the...
boy, yes, that's right, we can't do that.
So it couldn't be October 4th. 27th seems to be fairly...
Well, has the hearing been
Spoken for.
postponed now because
Yeah, the
the,
27th. I
No,
would
the
not
hearing
like
occurs
it.
at the same time. It's just that
That's
there's
Cape
Public
Cod
comment
Commission.
period is...
public comment period.
is
People
longer.
can,
And their comment period is longer,
Yeah.
but the hearings is the same
The
day.
extension is because the Cape Cod Commission was going to hold their hearing, and anything that came out of the Cape Cod Commission's exercise really wouldn't have time to get into the whole MEPA process. So because the Cape Cod Commission is here, they just give it much opportunity for comments to get in, and not people getting squeezed between the two hearings and events. So we're still on for the Cape Cod Commission on the date and on the time.
On the
at,
4th.
Right,
at
so-
our library,
Right.
the main library. I mean.
At six,
Right.
their hearing's at 6 o'clock. We'll continue to schedule our own meeting for later, and we can always retreat to the other room if we want to have our meeting while they continue their hearing. Though their hearing may not go that long, we'll find out.
right,
That's on October 4th?
yeah.
Yes.
Their
Would
hearing
October
is
11
6
be
to
possible?
9.
I'm sorry?
Would October 11 be possible?
I think that's, isn't that the holiday?
Oh, you mean, is it after
Oh,
Columbus
it's
Day?
after
No,
Columbus.
Columbus Day is
Day-
early this year.
It is after Columbus Day, right?
Columbus
Yes,
Day's
it
the
is.
8th.
This is the 7th or the 8th?
Okay, the 11th is no good for me. Well, we'll find a date that works for them.
Yeah, on the day that works
And
for
we'll
them.
tell you what it is, because obviously they have jobs that involve their own commitments, but we'll do the best we can sometime, if we can, before October, Columbus Day takes place.
Right, and are we figuring we take the Island Queen?
I think the steamship is going to be the one,
That'll go to Oak Bluffs?
until Columbus Day.
Okay, all right.
And after Columbus Day, it won't, yeah.
Well, it just-
Then they go to Tisbury,
Yeah, then you have to go to,
but which is okay, because Tisbury is one of the 2 places we're going to visit.
All right.
yeah, it'll go to Vineyard Haven.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Vineyard Haven, Tisbury. Okay, any further comments or questions or discussion points before we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Do I hear a
Second.
Second, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. This was a long one, but.